Imagine standing at the bottom of the deepest place on Earth, not visiting, standing. Above your head sits 11 kilometres of ocean, and the weight of all that water presses down with a force so enormous that, unprotected, your chest would be flattened, your lungs would collapse, and the air inside your body would be crushed out of existence in less than a second. A person dropped there without a submarine would not drown slowly. They would be crushed instantly, folded in on themselves by a pressure over 1,000 times greater than the air you are breathing right now. And yet, gliding calmly through that exact spot, there is a small, pale, almost see-through fish. It is not struggling, it is not armoured, it is at home. This is the story of how living creatures survived the most crushing environment on the planet, a place that should be utterly impossible for anything with a body. By the end, you will understand not only the clever tricks that let them live down there, but the strange, hidden ceiling in the ocean, a depth beyond which it seems no fish can go, no matter how tough it is. To understand the miracle, you first have to understand the enemy. And in the deep sea, the enemy is pressure. Pressure is nothing more than weight pushing down on a surface, and water is heavy. Every 10 meters you descend into the ocean, the pressure increases by roughly 1 atmosphere, which is the entire weight of the atmosphere you carry on your shoulders every day without noticing. Go down 10 meters and you feel double. Go down 100 and it is like 10 atmospheres stacked on top of you. Now keep going. Past the sunlit surface, past the dim twilight zone, into the midnight zone where no light from the sun ever reaches, and then further still, into the abyss, and finally into the deepest trenches, the hadal zone, named after Hades, the underworld. At the very bottom, around 11,000 meters down, the pressure reaches roughly 1,000 atmospheres. That is the equivalent of a large elephant standing on every single square centimetre of your body, or the weight of a small car pressing on the tip of your thumb, everywhere, all at once, from every direction. This is not a place where survival is difficult. It is a place where, by every rule your body knows, survival should be flatly impossible. So why does it kill us, exactly? The answer is one word: air. Your body is not a solid block. It is riddled with pockets of gas. Your lungs are 2 large bags of air. Your sinuses are hollow. Your gut carries pockets of gas. Your inner ears hold air. And gas is the one thing that pressure loves to squeeze. When you push on a liquid or a solid, almost nothing happens because there is no empty space to collapse into. But when you push on a gas, it shrinks dramatically. Take a sealed bag of air down just a few dozen meters and you watch it crumple in on itself. Take a human body down thousands of meters and every one of those air spaces implodes. The lungs are forced flat, the sinuses cave in, the delicate tissues are torn apart as the gas inside them is crushed to almost nothing. Our whole design, so perfectly suited to a world of thin, gentle air, becomes a death sentence the moment the water gets deep enough. We are, quite literally, built wrong for the deep. And here is where the animals of the abyss reveal their first and most elegant secret. They simply refuse to carry any air at all. A deep-sea fish has no lungs. Most of them have thrown away the swim bladder, the little gas-filled sac that shallow water fish use to control their buoyancy, precisely because a bag of gas at the bottom of the ocean is a liability that would crush them. With no air pockets anywhere inside them, there is nothing left to implode. And the rest of the trick follows from a simple fact of physics. Water cannot really be squeezed. It is very nearly incompressible. So if you build a creature almost entirely out of water, that creature becomes almost impossible to crush. This is why so many deep-sea animals look the way they do. Soft, gelatinous, watery, translucent, more like living jelly than solid flesh. Their bodies are flooded with water, so the crushing pressure outside is perfectly matched by the water inside. The force pushing in is balanced by the force pushing back out, and the animal feels, in a sense, nothing at all. The pressure is not being resisted, it is being ignored, because there is nothing rigid there for it to break. But this raises a much deeper and more subtle problem. one you cannot see just by looking at the animal. Because it turns out that pressure does not only threaten the big air spaces, it reaches all the way down into the tiniest machinery of life itself. Your body runs on proteins, millions of exquisitely folded molecules that fold into precise shapes to do their jobs, and on membranes, the thin, flexible skins that wrap every one of your cells. And at the pressures found in the deep sea, both of these begin to fail. The crushing force pushes on proteins and tries to squash them out of their working shapes so they stop functioning. It pushes on the fatty membranes of every cell and tries to jam them solid, stiffening them until they can no longer let nutrients in and waste out. In other words, even if you have no air pockets to implode, the pressure can still quietly shut down the chemistry of life from the inside, molecule by molecule. So the deep-sea creatures needed a second, invisible layer of defense, working not on the level of lungs and bladders, but on the level of individual atoms. And this is the truly astonishing part. They solved it with a special class of molecules that scientists call piezolytes, which simply means pressure substances. The most important of these is a compound with a long name, trimethylamine oxide, usually shortened to TMAO, and what it does is genuinely beautiful. TMAO acts like a tiny molecular scaffold. It surrounds the delicate proteins and physically props them open, holding them in their correct working shape and refusing to let the pressure crush them flat. It stabilizes the machinery of the cell against the very force that is trying to break it. The deeper a fish lives, the more TMAO its tissues contain. Shallow fish have very little. Fish from the crushing trenches are absolutely loaded with it, saturated with this molecular armor that lets their proteins keep working under a load that would jam them solid in any surface animal. It is, in effect, a chemical that makes life itself pressure-proof. And the membranes get their own solution too. Remember, pressure tries to freeze those fatty cell membranes into a rigid, useless state. So deep-sea animals build their membranes out of different fats, ones rich in what are called unsaturated fatty acids, which have a naturally loose, flexible, fluid structure. It is the same reason a healthy oil stays liquid in your fridge while butter goes hard. By packing their cells with these more fluid fats, deep-sea creatures keep their membranes soft and working even as the pressure tries to stiffen them. And on top of all that, their very enzymes, the biological tools that drive every chemical reaction in the body, are subtly re-engineered, reshaped over evolutionary time so that they actually prefer to work under high pressure rather than being broken by it. No air inside, a watery, incompressible body, molecular scaffolding to protect the proteins, fluid fats to keep the membrane soft, and enzymes retooled for the crush. Layer upon layer of adaptation, most of it completely invisible from the outside. Now let me introduce you to the animal that pulls all of this together better than almost anything else alive. The deepest living fish ever reliably found is a type of snailfish, and it is not some armored monster bristling with spines. It is almost the opposite. It is small, delicate, pale pink or translucent, with soft, loose, jelly-like skin and thin, barely there bones. It looks, honestly, fragile, like something that should fall apart in your hands. And yet it lives calmly at depths approaching 8,000 meters in one of the most crushing environments on the entire planet, thriving where steel machines have to be engineered with enormous care just to avoid being crushed. Its fragile appearance is not a weakness. It is the whole strategy. That soft, watery, gelatinous body has no rigid parts to shatter and no air spaces to implode. Its tissues are saturated with TMAO to keep its proteins working. Its skull is even left partly open and incomplete, so there is no hard, sealed chamber for the pressure to collapse. Everything about it, right down to the molecules, has been shaped for a single purpose: to make the impossible depth feel like home. It is not surviving the pressure by fighting it. It has been engineered from the atom up to simply not care. And this points to something that catches almost everyone off guard. If these animals are so perfectly built for crushing pressure, What happens if you bring one up to the surface? The answer is grim, and it is the exact mirror image of what kills a human going down. A deep-sea fish hauled up too quickly does not feel relief. It is destroyed. Its whole body has been finely tuned to function only under immense pressure. All that molecular scaffolding, those specially built membranes, those pressure-loving enzymes, they only work correctly when they are being squeezed. Remove the pressure and the machinery falls apart. The proteins lose their shape, the membranes destabilize, and the creature is often left bloated, ruined, sometimes almost melting, unable to survive in the gentle conditions we consider normal. It is a haunting reminder of just how completely these animals belong to the deep. For them, our world at the surface is the deadly, alien, impossible place. They cannot live in the light any more than we can live in the crush. But for me, the single most fascinating part of this whole story is not how deep life can go. It is where it seems to stop. Because scientists have noticed something strange. No true fish has ever been found below about 8,200 meters, even though the ocean plunges on for another 3 kilometres beyond that. There is a flaw to the fish, and the leading explanation is chillingly elegant. Remember TMAO, the molecule that props the proteins open? The deeper a fish goes, the more of it they need. But there is a catch. That same molecule also changes the chemistry of the fish's body fluids, and there is a limit to how much you can pack in before the internal balance of the animal is thrown into chaos, before the fish is essentially in danger of drawing water in and swelling out of control. Do the maths on that limit, and it lands at roughly 8,000 meters, which means the deepest fish may not be stopped by the pressure crushing them directly. They may be stopped because the very chemical that lets them survive the pressure runs out of room to work. It is as if the ocean has a hidden ceiling written not in rock, but in molecules. Below it, the fish simply cannot follow, and the deepest trenches are left to even stranger, simpler life. Tiny shrimp-like amphipods, sea cucumbers, microbes, creatures that never needed that particular trick in the first place. So the next time you look at the ocean, try to hold this picture in your mind. Below the waves, below the light, below the point where any of us could survive for even an instant, there is an entire living world thriving under a weight that would crush a submarine. Soft pink fish drifting calmly through the dark, ghostly translucent creatures built almost entirely of water, bodies with no air to be crushed, proteins held open by molecular scaffolding, membranes kept soft against the squeeze, all of it working in perfect silence at the bottom of the world. These animals did not conquer the crushing deep by being stronger than it. They conquered it by giving up the very things that make us fragile, the air, the rigidity, the resistance, and by rebuilding themselves atom by atom into creatures that the pressure can no longer touch. The deep ocean remains the largest, darkest, and least explored habitat on Earth. Most of it never seen by human eyes, and every strange, soft, glowing creature we pull from it is proof of the same quiet truth. Life does not need the conditions we call normal. Given enough time, it will find a way to live almost anywhere, even at the crushing bottom of the sea. So here is what I want to know from you. Which part amazed you the most? The fish with no air inside it to crush, the molecule that props its proteins open against 1,000 atmospheres, or the invisible chemical ceiling that seems to stop life at a depth even the toughest fish cannot cross? Tell me in the comments. And if this changed the way you see the ocean, stay with me, because the deep is full of impossible things that turn out to be quietly, stubbornly true.